Good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Kamalamu Oluetu Waranzimela. Guys, we are on it again. I'm out here spilling insightful knowledge for you guys, for us to learn and grow together. So, guys, let's learn and grow together. So, guys, last week I shared a very important formula. I want you to go to my video that I posted last week so that you can actually learn that financial value formula. It's very informative for you to actually have that formula and actually practice it and see if you'll be able to create the value that will be very useful for the people that you want to serve. Understand? So today I just want to dwell deeper on that. I just want to dwell deeper on financial value. Understand? Mostly on this term that is actually called value. Understand? On what is value really? Understand? What is value really? Understand? You know, last week we did define what is financial value, but this time I want to share with you the secret of value. Understand? I want to share with you why you shouldn't chase money but create value. Understand? I want to share with you why a lot of people are saying that money is not important. Understand? It's not really like that money is not important, but they're trying to indirectly tell you that create value, because value is what is actually important. Money is just a byproduct of value. Understand? If you create value, money will follow. Understand? So let me just show you why we are saying that money, it is finite, and value, it is infinite. Understand? This is the reason why, right? This is just a short explanation, guys, nothing much. Okay, so where is this things and starting, right? It's starting on our resources. Understand? Each and every single thing stems on the resources. Understand? That's the beginning of every single thing. Understand? Gold is influenced by resources. Tangible money is influenced by the resources. Digital money is influenced by resources. Understand? Each and every single thing that we know here in this earth is influenced by resources. Inflation is influenced by resources. Understand? If there's a lot of money in the circulation of the economy, what does that mean? It means that inflation will increase. Why is that? Because there is limited resources in the economy. Understand? So this is the reason why resources is very important. So on this framework, understand, the first step that you need to understand value, understand, right now I'm not talking necessarily about financial value, but I want you to understand this term that is called value. Understand? So the first thing that we should learn is that resources. Understand? This right here is very important. Understand? Resources can be tangible and intangible as well. Understand? So how do we actually define this term that is called resources, and how does it actually link with value? Understand? So what we will say for you to actually understand this is that we have past and present. So why am I writing this past and present is that in the olden days, resources were defined differently. Do you understand? But right now, presently, resources are also defined differently, right? Or maybe should I say they are like they have an additional definition from what resources were defined in the past. Understand? So right now, I'm going to share with you how resources were defined in the past. Resources in the past were mainly based on commodities, right? And also land as well. Understand? So commodities, what am I saying when I say commodities, right? Well, when I say commodities, I mean that they were based on probably things that people wanted to trade, understand? Probably rice, understand? Yes, like rice. So they were based on rice, understand? For example, another example can be timber, right? People cutting down trees and actually selling the timber for people to actually build their houses, understand? The last example can be spices, right? It was also things and part of commodities. Or maybe I can just say maybe cows. Okay, let's just put cows there. Understand? Let's just put cows there. Understand? So the commodities that were there in the past, right? Olden days, understand? It was rice, timber, cows, also land as well. Understand that people used those things to actually trade for themselves. Why did they do that? Is because they had value. These commodities had value. Understand? So these commodities are part of what we call resources. Do you understand? So this is for the past, the present. So how are we best defining the resources right now in the present? Any guess? I know that you know, but anyway, we are best defining the resources right now based on our skills. Understand? So I know that a lot of people do not have, tangible resources. Understand? Like Zimbabwe tangible resources, guys. Like land, buildings, property. Understand? Zimbabwe, understand? But the resource that you can have as a person individually is your natural abilities and the abilities that you develop over time. Understand? So what are those abilities? Those abilities are skills, understand, exposure, understand, skills, exposure, experience as well, experience, knowledge as well, okay? So those skills, guys, those resources that we have at this current moment in time, that each and every single one have, it's what? It's skills, it's exposure, it's experience, it's knowledge. When I say skills, you know what it is, right? It's a skill that you develop over time, understand? Through probably going to college and learning some sort of skills that you can have, that you can use to actually maybe get employment or maybe be self-employed, understand? Exposure, it's when you are around certain people, maybe around a professional, understand, and actually being exposed on how to actually do something, understand, on how to actually build something, understand. And then experience is something that actually accumulates over time, understand. It can either take months or it can actually take years, understand. Knowledge is something that you build over time, understand. All of this right here, it's part of the wisdom that you have. Do you understand? So this right here, these elements right here, which it's your wisdom, it's part of your resource as an individual. Okay? So walk with me here. Understand? I say that in the past, right? They defined resources differently. Understand? They said resources are commodities. Understand? They also included resources as land. Understand? What kind of commodities? Any different kind of commodities, because each and every single thing was actually traded back then, as long as it has value. Understand? For example, commodities like rice, timber, cows, cattle. Understand? Right? Any types of cattle. Understand? It was actually traded. Understand? As long as it has value. Understand? And then in the present, what type of resources do we have as this individual human being that is watching right now? Understand? It's skills, it's exposure, it's experience, it's knowledge that you build over time, of which these components they make up the wisdom that you have as a person. Understand? So, we started this video on wanting to understand what is value. Understand? Not necessarily wanting to understand what is resource or resources. Understand? But just like I've said with you and shared with you, is that to understand value, you have to understand resources, or maybe you have to start with resources. Understand? This framework requires you to start with resources. Understand? So, when you move onwards with our framework, understand, when you have the resources, what comes next? It's not money. It's what we call value. Understand? It's what we call value. Understand? It's what we call value. Understand? What you have created, the project that you're working on. Understand? You have to ask yourself, Uguti, will it be valuable for the people that I want to actually serve? Understand? You should actually ask yourself that. Understand? Value is very important. Understand? If you want to measure your value, if your value will actually impact other people, go back to my other video that I actually shared. Understand? It will actually take you on a very simple formula that you can actually calculate for yourself and be like, okay, will this product that I'm building, will this problem that I'm trying to solve, will this desire that I'm trying to solve, understand, actually be worth it? Will it create that financial value for me? Understand? Then you will see if the resources that you actually things in investing in creating that, will it create the value so that you can actually serve the masses? Understand? So value is very important, guys. If you create value, the rest is history. I was going to stop here, but then I want to make you to understand why I say money is finite and why money is finite, understand, and why money is not infinite. Understand? That's why a lot of people say do not chase money. Understand? Right? They're not necessarily saying that money is not important, but they're telling you that start with what is actually valuable. Understand? So what's our next step? Our next step, understand, for you to actually understand value, I want you for a moment to forget about the present. Understand? I want you to focus on the past, because now we are taking it way back when our grandfathers used to live. Understand? Because our grandfathers had what? Resources. Understand? And what resources did they have? They had resources like commodities. Understand? Different commodities like probably gold, timber, cows. Understand? Ships. Understand? Land. Understand? They used that timber to create houses. Understand? They weren't knowledgeable enough probably to create bricks, to create things and buildings. Understand? So timber was their main form of resource to create those houses. Understand? So they had those resources. Understand? And how do they create value? They took those resources and created value using those commodities. Understand? So walk with me. I say forget about the present. Understand? Focus on the past right now, so that I can make you understand value. Okay? And why value is important more than money. Understand? I'm not saying money is not important. It is. But why you should start with value. On anything that you want to do, on any project that you want to start with value. Understand? How will this be valuable for this person that I want to serve? Understand? So let's go. So in the past, when our great-grandfathers used to live in this earth, understand, they make use of resources, understand, to create what? To create value. Understand? And then what happened? This is what happened. When they created that value, understand, they needed to trade what they had, understand, with other people, understand. I mean, like if you had rice in your area, understand, you couldn't live with rice only alone, understand, right? You needed what? You needed spices. You needed spices to probably cook something, understand? And you couldn't live with cows alone. You needed rice from maybe land X, maybe clan X, understand, right? And clan Y needed what? Needed spices, understand? So they had to trade with clan X, understand, to get those spices. And clan X had to trade with clan Y to get what? The cattle, the cows, understand? So what did they do? They determined the value, understand, according to the resources that they had, understand? Hear me out, hear me out. There was no form of money that we know today, understand? There was no coins, there was no papers, there was no cards as we know it, there was no digital currency that as we know it, there was no digital things and coins as we know it, understand? What did they do? They used the value to trade with the resources to actually determine how valuable the trade that they wanted to make, understand? Using those commodities. Work with me, understand? So how did they do it? How did they do it? Understand? They created what we call, what they called actually, you know, barter. So on my next videos, I will probably dwell a little bit on what barter is, understand, and actually probably share other concepts that I've actually learned, understand, that they actually used, within this barter system, if I may call it, understand, or maybe method, if I may call it, understand. So they used barter, understand. Barter, in simple terms, right? They just use resources to create value, or maybe they use resources to determine the value, understand. If, for example, they wanted to trade a cow with spices, understand, they'll be like, okay, I have a living cow, so you cannot give me just one spice, understand. You might probably give me maybe 10 spices, or maybe more than that, maybe 100 spices, or maybe 1,000 spices, understand. And then that will be equivalent with the commodity, the cow that I have at the moment, understand. So that is barter in simple terms. But if you want, I will make another video and explain this to you guys so that you can understand it more deeply. So barter was a form of value, was a form of value exchange, understand. And what happened next, understand, is history. It is the history of money. What happened next here, this is when money was formed. Because people back then, they wanted an easier way for them not to be like, no, that is not the value, with my land, with the rice that I'm selling, with the cow that I'm selling, understand? They were like, okay, you know what? Let us try to find a scarce resource, understand, that we can actually use so that we can trade, understand? And what was the scarce resource? That scarce resource was gold. Understand? So that scarce resource was gold. Understand? Yabo. Abantu abaninzi, a lot of people didn't have access to gold that easily. Understand? Why? It's because gold is mined. It's mined from underground. Understand? So it made it to be a precious resource. Understand? Because it was hard to mine it. Understand? So now they were like, okay, you know what? So for us to determine the value, let our value be linked to gold so that we might make sure that these resources that we are trying to trade within each other can be fair as possible. Understand? So what do? They mined gold and then they traded these resources with gold. But as time goes on, what happened? Of course, you know, there will be people who, are stealing the gold. There will be people who are managing the people who have gold. Understand? So this is when banks were formed. Understand? This is when banks were formed. Then banks were like, okay, you know what? Since this is happening regularly, understand, let us actually form banks, understand? But there's a broader reason why banks were actually formed, understand? I will also include that in my other videos, understand? So they formed banks, understand? What did banks do? Banks were a form of a protection, if I may, understand? They kept this gold in a vault, understand? They kept this gold in a vault, safe, understand? And then banks were like, okay, you know what? The one thing that we will allow you guys to use as trade is a promise note, which today it's called a promissory note, understand? Whereby people use that note, to actually trade with each other, understand? And actually determine the value that they actually needed to trade within each other, understand? So banks, they formed what we call a promise note. In simple terms, a promise note says that I have the gold, understand, but it's kept safely in a bank in Switzerland, understand. I have the gold, but my gold is kept safely in things in the United States. I have the gold, but the gold is kept safely in China, understand, right? I have the gold, but the gold is kept safely where? In South Africa, understand? So that promise note actually gave that person that they were trading with, right, more like an assurance to be like, oh, okay, I understand. When you have this note is from this kind of a bank, understand? So I can go to that bank, maybe my bank, and be like, hey, this is a promise note that I got from and so trader, of which probably it was signed, it was stamped, and each and every single thing was there, understand? Then the bank would understand. The only thing that we will do, the bank that this person kept his gold will just communicate with the bank in Scotland to be like, hey, is this true? Then the bank in Scotland will be like, yeah, it's true. Then the barter, or should I say, the trade of resources were going to be successful. Understand? So this is why they introduced this promise note. Understand? And then as time goes on, they were like, okay, you know what? This promise note it's working, but then it doesn't identify or maybe solve our problem, understand, of trading resources per quantity, understand? Because now they wanted to trade even the smallest things, understand, right, that are below this promissory note, understand? They were like, okay, you know what, let us come with a different form, understand, of money, if I may, understand? And then they were like, okay, you know what, let us create what we call coins, understand? So they created coins, understand? So they created coins, understand? And how did they create those coins? They took the same thing, right? The resources, understand? The resources that were scarce, and then created things in coins, understand? Some coins were created with, scarce skills, and those scarce materials, understand, whereby they can create these coins, whereby they know that it is scarce and people will not find it easily, understand? They made sure that they included probably logos. Some countries used the faces of kings, understand, or maybe the faces of their queens, understand, or maybe they inserted their national flag, or maybe their clan flag, understand, so that they can identify where this coin come from, understand. So they created coins, understand? And these coins created an easier transaction, an easier trade, understand, with, with anything. Like, if I wanted to trade probably the spice that we're talking about, understand, then it was easy for us to trade. Instead of you giving me a cow to trade with spice, understand, you would have to give me coins. Do you understand? Then it evolved to what we call today digital coins, right? I'm not gonna explain this much, understand? Maybe I'm gonna include in the other videos as well, including digital currency as well, understand? So they included digital coins, of which, I feel like you do have a little bit of understanding what digital coins is, understand? It's something that is virtual, that is not tangible, understand? That is traded virtually, understand, right? But I'm gonna make you understand, what is digital coins in succeeding videos, understand? And then digital coins created what we call today, which is digital currency. Or if you want to, you can say digital money, understand? So they created what we call digital money, understand? So now I can see that probably you're like, oh, okay, I do understand, why money, right? What we call money here, it is what? It is finite. And value, it is what? It is infinite, understand? So this is the reason why that I'm saying from here to here, all of these guys here, it is what? It is finite. And in here, it is what? Value is what? Value is infinite. Value is infinite. Understand? Value is infinite. Understand? I don't know if you need me to explain this, right? It explains itself. Understand? Money is important. Understand? But what is more important is value. Understand? If you have a resource, probably skill whatsoever, chasing money, understand, you'll chase it forever, understand? But if you have a resource, probably a skill, exposure, experience, knowledge, which is wisdom, understand, and you think of something that is valuable, either a desire or a problem, understand, money will follow because you have something that is valuable that the masses actually want. Do you understand? So, starting from today, if you want money, make sure that you do what? You accumulate resources. If you have land, buildings, properties, good for you. But people like us, understand, we have what? We have natural abilities, understand? So we have to use those natural abilities to do what? To acquire skills, exposure, experience, knowledge, which is what? Which is wisdom. To do what? To create value. And when we have created value, what do? We serve the masses. And when we serve the masses, money comes along. Understand? So guys, the next time in our videos, our succeeding videos, I will explain what is digital coins, what is digital currency, understand? Although it's not that important in our financial value, but I'll make you guys understand these two terms. Right guys? Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for supporting as well. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Cheers.